We're back with NBA coverage right around the day and the night of which the season kicks back off, starting with a couple of games on NBC once again for the first time in a few decades. That is going to be some absolute fun. But in the meantime, we got some news that I got to account for, ranging all the way from like a couple weeks back in some preseason action to a few different contract extensions and rookie deals literally being doled out just before the regular season begins. So to get straight into it, we had Cole Anthony. He suffered a chin laceration during one of the preseason games earlier in the month. And I think at that point, they still say that he's all good to go for the start of the season. They don't think it's anything that's going to affect his availability for the season opener. So, I mean, I guess this was not really consequential for them long term, but you would obviously hope that it's not anything that messed him up too badly. John Morant is also still day-to-day right now. They believe that he's going to be active to play in the season opener the Grizzlies have tomorrow, but he was dealing with a left ankle sprain at around the exact same point. And goodness gracious, we all know, the Memphis fans know, man, you just want to have John Morant as healthy as he possibly can be to start out the season. You probably want him somewhere over 90%. Because granted, with his play style, the fact that he just loves to go vertical and loves to bang low in the paint, even with his smaller frame, like he's gonna bounce off the ground a whole hell of a lot. And when you're consistently utilizing your body in that way, you're prone to leave kind of your ankle in a weird place. You're putting as much pressure on that as you possibly can. Again, not a medical person, but that's just the logic of the situation. And any hindrance to that, anything, even if it's something as small as a sprain, could be taken with a little bit of caution. I guess they don't think that it's going to be anything too bad, but you definitely want to make sure that you just string him along. You don't want him suffering any sort of severe injury. You wouldn't need that for your organization. And honestly, for as good as he's been for the Grizzlies, man, like, this is a pretty interesting point. Could serve to be a very interesting point in his career with the team. I mean, I don't know how it got so bad to where there were different rumors swirling around that he could have been fucking traded last season. As diabolical as that sounds, it's like, it's been a little while since the Grizzlies have been in deep enough playoff contention, and the West is getting more and more crowded. Again, with different developments last season taking place, man, even if we think that John Morant could be a lifer, anything is possible. So, his contributions this season, whether they end up being very impactful to the team or might serve to hurt the team even, that is going to influence him far, far down the line. And it's going to play a heavy factor, going to be looked at very intently when it comes to front office decisions that'll follow around the trade deadline, after the season, and so on. Jalen Duren was dealing with hamstring tightness, also after playing in a little bit of preseason action, and he was ruled day-to-day at the time. I think they're still checking him out, but I believe the Pistons also say that, hey, he'll probably be available for the season opener. It is going to be tremendously interesting to see what he does this season, and overall, how the Pistons can respond. Now, I didn't note this on here for some reason, but they did also get news that Jaden Ivey was going to miss at least a few weeks to open up the season as well, which sucks. I mean, he quite literally started off the season so well for him last year and then missed that huge chunk of time in the middle and essentially for the rest of the year due to injury. So to have a player of his caliber with the speed that he possesses on the basketball court be out for that much time again, like, you hope that you get him back at full health, but it's like, man, the Pistons are legitimately in a spot where they have expectations now. Yeah, very, very wild to be saying that. Literally just a couple of years or so, less than a couple of years, removed from them being one of the worst teams in regular season history. For at least a stretch of that 2023-24 season, right? Look at what a difference a fucking year makes. The fact that even though they went out incredibly sad, Asar Thompson went out incredibly sad in that series against the Knicks, you took them to Game 6 while actually seeing legitimate playoff basketball, actually winning a game in Detroit for the first time in like 17 years in the playoffs. Just set tremendous precedents for their future. And now, with finishing at an above 500 record, with finishing, in the top half of the Eastern Conference and contending for a playoff spot, well, now we're going to be out to see whether or not this was a fluke or whether they actually have put something concrete on display that can carry them over for years and years with this front office, that regime, with Bickerstaff doing his work there as well. Like, this is the time, not necessarily the time, right? But, you've established a little bit of a foundation. Can you ensure that this season, even though the East is a little more open with some of the injuries to star players, you still have to go out and take advantage of that to assert yourself as a team on the rise? Still on the rise. They're still incredibly young. So the only way for them to go is up at this point. But can they match that expectation? That's what we're all going to find out this season. Nikola Topic is undergoing testicular surgery, and he's going to miss 4 to 6 weeks. I don't even want to tell you, I don't even want to know how the fuck that happened to Nikola Topic, but the man literally cannot catch a break. Like, the fact that this man technically was on the NBA roster as a draft and stash player and won an NBA title despite being injured for the entire season and not even playing a single minute. Like, he actually had some pretty good preseason games, I think. So, to just have this man consistently miss more time with more injuries, it's like, man, you drafted this kid, and granted, it kind of shocked people a little bit, man. Like, for Topic in the situation, he's not going to get the starting position because in OKC, yeah, that's already taken. But to continue building out their depth, like, Topic can actually serve to be a really valuable player off the bench with the playmaking that he can provide. And at least what's been put on display in his time in the EuroLeagues and also in the preseason as well. Like, they could find value in that, but they're going to have to wait a little longer to see what he can bring on the actual NBA scene. Erik Spoelstra is set to be the head coach of the 2028 USA men's basketball squad per a report from Shams Charania. And I think that makes ideal sense. Like, if I'm not mistaken, he was one of the assistant coaches on the USA men's basketball team last year when they went out and won the whole damn thing in Paris. Spoelstra is legitimately a good hire. You couldn't go wrong with selecting him here, honestly. You know, like it's they have their fair share of options. Don't get me wrong, but when it comes to coaches like Steve Kerr, who are in a similar realm when it comes to accomplishments, when it comes to success with their overall team, Spoelstra is right in that conversation. And honestly, with him getting this head coaching spot, you could view the 2024 Olympics for that men's basketball team, consider that to have been his audition for the role. Like, yeah, again, there are definitely a good amount of coaches to choose from generally, but I couldn't have envisioned them going with anybody else even last year. So, it's a great move for them to make, but it honestly didn't really surprise me. Like, it made way too much sense. LeBron is going to miss the opener with a sciatic injury, and he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. There's just been a lot of stuff going on about that. It is unfortunate that LeBron is dealing with that. This came from Shams Charania as well. And you hope he can actually, again, rest and recover, because that is the key. He is now a very, very, very old man. And while he can still offer up great overall performances with the Lakers, while he has done that, even in his older age, the amount of extra baggage that comes with this puts the Lakers in an interesting spot. Because the fact that they are still committing that kind of money to him at this point over the past few years has left them in a position where they can make few moves in the offseason when it comes to filling out their roster around LeBron. Now, to be honest, again, with this shift, and luckily, yes, I stress luckily, and because of the stupidity of fucking Nico Harrison, them getting Luka Doncic was a blessing in disguise for them. But, there's purported, I guess, jealousy of not being the one who gets the info about different moves being made. The jealousy of not necessarily being the center of core focus, and that's jealousy of not being viewed as the marquee star, the marquee reason and attraction on the LA Lakers anymore. With Doncic's tenure, you've got all that coming out from LeBron's side, and it's probably going to reach a point where it gets very ugly, unfortunately. Again, you can't blame the Lakers for wanting to make that shift. It really does come down to an age thing. And Luka Doncic, even with him already doing all this stuff, has still not hit his prime yet. He's only got room to get better, and before you know it, once LeBron's out, the continuity remains if they try now to at least put some things in motion around Luka Doncic. That's why they've been, focusing more of their attention his way. And I guess rather than just come from a place of understanding about it, LeBron, knowing that he's still that good, I guess just has a lot of pride about it. But aside from paying him all that money and being as cap-strapped as they have been, I guess another component of it is that for whatever reason, apparently there have been reports from other articles and stuff like that talking about him trying to scope out the team within the time that he's out to see whether or not other moves are being made. And again, this is just consistent with what he's been doing over the past few years with seemingly hinting at retirement. And I guess multiple people saw and honestly were probably scintillated with whatever commercial LeBron recently did with fucking Hennessy. But I guess, again, overall, a lot of other people have had their own sentiments about that. And honestly, I don't even have time to really get into all that. Because who really cares, right? But all of these different ploys behind the scenes to, I guess, try to scare the Lakers into doing something they don't intend to do, it's just creating for a really awkward scene in LA right now. And I don't know. At the end of the day, the Lakers, LeBron can try to dictate what's going on, but at the end of the day, it's Luka Doncic that will be out on the court to open the season. It will be Luka Doncic who's leading this team for at least the next 4 to 6 weeks. So, I guess we really will see what happens. And if the Lakers are buying his bluff at all, then, they'll probably cave. And if not, again, expect all those different reports to get even uglier in time. The Bucks would sign Alex Antetokounmpo to a two-way deal, and I think per the report from Cham Charania, Giannis, Thanasis, and Alex became the first trio of brothers in NBA history to all be signed to an active NBA contract at the same time. I know that for, again, a while, you've seen pairs of the Antetokounmpo brothers around. I know that Alex and Costas were a part of the Lakers organization for some time. Costas has definitely been around for a little longer, at least from my understanding. Alex, being the younger one, he's kind of just been around different NBA circles. Hasn't really found anything consistent. So even if it's not really a full-blown deal, hey, Giannis can say that he's got at least two of his brothers in the same organization as him on a constant basis. I don't know if they'll all consistently travel with him because, again, I would be interested to see what Alex does on an NBA court because he frankly, again, back in late 2010s, early 2020s, he was getting that time, and he's just not been around since. We know what Thanasis does or doesn't do in these spaces, so it is what it is. The 76ers would just be on some fucking craziness. Because I did mention in the last NBA coverage video that they did sign Emoni Bates in his skinny ass and then cut him with this development while signing MarJon Beauchamp. Then they waived MarJon Beauchamp. So I just don't understand the logic. And they just got a report today saying that Paul George, spoiler alert, he's not going to fucking play because he's not healthy. We all knew he wasn't healthy. So you probably need the small forward depth. And yes, you have Kelly Oubre Jr. right now. You have Justin Edwards re-signed on a deal. But you'd think that you'd go after at least one more person to fill that role. And maybe, again, Beauchamp hasn't really proven himself enough. I've obviously went in on Bates's physique and how, again, it would just be hard for him to last in the NBA across a full 82-game season while being 177 pounds at 6'10" tall. It would eat him alive. No matter what size of player you have him guarding, they're going to find a way to just completely expose him. It's unfortunate stuff. I'm serious. He has to fill out that fucking weight. But at least Beauchamp, at the very least, has been around the NBA circles, man. You gotta at least trust him, and yet, just like that, you make yourself even thinner at the small forward position right now. How much longer do you really want to hold out hope for old Paul George? One, health was not really the name of the day for him last season. And even when he was healthy, he did not show you a whole bunch to have enough faith in. But then again, you paid him that $53 million contract, so you do have to eat it. I get it, but just the interesting stuff that people can put themselves in sometimes. Daryl Morey, yeah, man, Tom is winding down potentially. I'm not going to. If the 76ers cannot figure this stuff out by a certain point of time, man, as smart, as analytical as Daryl Morey wants to be, at some point of time, they aren't everything. And I think he's going to, if he hasn't already learned that by this point in his time as a general manager, just generally, then I don't know when he's going to learn his lesson, but they're certainly not going to put up with it for much longer if it continues to go this way. The Mavericks would sign Jason Kidd to a contract extension. They didn't mention the details behind it, but it does make sense. Even though he was so hesitant about, letting this damn Luka Doncic trade go down, the Mavericks still have a great team for him specifically to be working with as a coach. Through all of the crazy periods of time that the Mavericks have had, he's had a winning record overall with them. He's had multiple deep playoff runs, and again, just last year was in the NBA Finals, facing off against the Mavericks with that player. And now, even without the whole of their roster being healthy at this moment, they are still very much in position to contend once again, once all those units gets back. And, man, I am going to be very interested in seeing how he kind of plays around with the roster. They have so much versatility as it is already. And we know that Cooper Flagg is obviously going to be having his rookie debut tomorrow against the Spurs. That is going to be so much fun to watch. But yeah, those kinds of players, the Gaffords, the Lively the Seconds, the Marshalls, the Washington Juniors, these guys can play multiple positions at any one point in time. And without Kyrie Irving, yeah, you're kind of deficient at point guard right now. That's why you go out and get D'Angelo Russell, right? But it's going to be interesting to see what fits and sticks for Jason Kidd and what doesn't. Obviously, without Irving being back, it's going to take some time to find that rhythm, generally speaking. But, I don't know. It's going to make things pretty fun for the Mavericks. Again, though, like I said, you have to make sure that you go and do a decent amount of winning with this team. Because in the event that you have Kyrie Irving come back in January in a situation where he's got to make sure that he claws this team from low seeding in the Western Conference all the way to a potential playoff spot or a play-in spot, it's not going to fare well for you. You need to make sure that you are in the thick of the Western Conference, at least somewhere in the top 8 seeds by the time that Kyrie Irving gets back. Because what the play-in has proven over the past few years is that, again, the Western Conference, as always, is tough. So, they've always got a fighting chance, but they need to go above 500 during this time. The Kings would sign Russell Westbrook to a short-term deal, 1 year's $3.6 million per Shams Charania. And as awkward as it is going to be to see him don a Kings jersey, even if it is only intended for one season, it does make sense. They need someone to kind of be the leader of that second unit. They just haven't had it. They've tried to figure that out over some time, but the Kings have been a very top-heavy team. They did supplement it, or attempt to, with Malik Monk being a sixth man there, but that didn't prove to be enough. And figuring that his kind of scoring punch could be much more useful as a starter, well, now they've put him there. And again, with the combo of Levine now, DeRozan, Monk, Sabonis, and even Keegan Murray to an extent, like, it makes it to where their bench is just very depleted. Now, I don't know how much Russ is really going to provide for you in terms of like general scoring prowess, because again, like, the way in which he would intend to score is just not something that is feasible for him all of the time anymore. And it needs to the consistent and efficiency that he's shown over the past few seasons. The man is going to be, if he's not already like 37 years old, you're expecting that man to continue doing what he did in his prime by utilizing his speed, which again, at this stage of his career, he's not going to be faster than a lot of people. Okay, you're expecting him to get in the paint and put up shots when, his finishing as of late has definitely been suspect. And like, that's not something you can rely on. And would be certainly detrimental to this lineup if he was a starter. But again, as a bench guy, you can afford it because if not him, who else? That could be a positive and a negative thing. So while from that perspective, it does help the Kings at the same time, they are also just very, very limited on defense as it is. You know that guys like Devin Carter and Keon Ellis are probably going to provide some of your strongest defense. But those guys are small guards, and they are also players who would consistently be trying to fill in different minutes in the rotation from time to time. And with Russell Westbrook taking away some of those minutes, now it makes it even harder to get them in at certain moments of the game. Because you got to make that space for Russ, even if he is coming off the bench. That's just how this thing goes. They do not have that kind of consistent defense elsewhere. So that is still a gaping hole that so many teams are going to be able to exploit against the Kings this season unless they figure it out. And while you could say that Keegan Murray could also be labeled as a really good defender for them, there's a reason why I have to hold on saying that. For now, at least when it comes to the start of this season for the Kings. But in between that, there would be a report from Shams Charania stating that Malcolm Brogdon would retire from the NBA after 9 seasons. That was just like, the second I saw that, my jaw dropped. I can't lie to you. My jaw fucking dropped. Because I'm like, I was under the assumption that the man would take some time to go out and play with the Knicks. And he definitely would have helped them, been a much better spark off the bench than Cameron Payne ever was, from the standpoint of being an efficient playmaker. And also, again, knowing when to call his own shot, when to get other players involved into the flow of the game. From that standpoint of distributing the ball around, Brogdon would have definitely fared very well as a New Yorker in this situation. And again, if you needed Jalen Brunson to take a rest, man, even if Brogdon's not the same level of scorer, you could rest easy knowing that he'd still be able to hold it down at the end of the day. That is all that the man has done throughout his NBA career. Like, we all remember that rookie season from him, even coming in as an older rookie alongside Giannis, just being a consistent playmaker from the very jump and onset of his career. And in 9 seasons, he's averaged 15.3 points per game, 4.1 rebounds per game, and 4.7 assists per game on 46.3% shooting from the field, with 38.8% shooting from deep and 87.4% shooting from the free throw line. Like, those are pretty solid numbers. And again, even if he was like right at the tail end of his prime, technically from an age standpoint, like, he probably still had a little more to offer. I think he could have truly helped put that Knicks team, I don't know about necessarily over the top per se. But again, this is a team that didn't really need much to at least add on to. They literally reached the Eastern Conference Finals. And again, in that series, what did hurt them was an inability to rely on anybody on their bench up until desperation settled in for Thibodeau, and he finally started to try to unlock the long right, but it was too late by that point. Brogdon would have been far more reliable to have in that situation, and that could have gone a long way when it came to the sheer exhaustion that Jalen Brunson had, not only from all of the action, all of the minutes that he logged in the regular season, but also how physical the Indy defense got with him in that series. Yes, he could match it by being the post scorer and just unrelenting bulldog of a player he can be, but it definitely took its toll on him by the end of that series. And if you do want to win a championship, it would be by having an opportunity to conserve him in those moments, so that later on in the fourth quarter, Brunson could do what he does best in the clutch. But before they even get that chance, Brogdon just calls it a career. It was a damn solid one. So you have to give credit where credit is due. Going back to the Kings and back to Keegan Murray. Interestingly, they signed him to a 5-year, $140 million contract extension. And again, with the way that contracts are going to get inflated, as much as that could kind of catch some people off guard, at the same time, $28 million per year for a player that can offer what Keegan Murray does is honestly not the worst thing in the world. But, there are a couple red flags that come with it for some people. For one, he only played in one less game this year, but saw a massive drop-off in terms of contributions and scoring, and had a slight dip in efficiency all across the board. And he's already 25 years old at this point. So he's getting very close to the territory of being exactly what he is. And yet, although he's been solid, is he really anything to truly invest that much in? That's something the Kings themselves still haven't figured out to this point. You could say that they just kind of threw a contract out there and just gave him something to work with to try to keep him long term. It's not anything too crazy. But they've got a lot more to learn about Keegan Murray at this point. There's still so much more that he would have to improve on in his game, and yet again, as you're getting closer and closer, because he is or was one of the older rookies coming into the NBA at that point, how much more time are you willing to give him before you make a true decision on his future with the team? I'm not sure. Also, this is not something that can necessarily be controlled, but the fact that they signed him to this deal while he's currently out with a UCL tear in his thumb and is going to miss the next 4 to 6 weeks is, interesting timing. And I guess in that, we'll truly see where at least an element of the value of this deal comes in at once he comes back from this injury. Because if the defense of the Kings is already struggling without him or with him on the floor for most of the season last year, you could imagine just how much more inefficient they will be without his services on the court to start off the year. And yes, they'll try to supplement that by spamming the hell out of Keon Ellis on a night-to-night basis trying to give him some reps at the small forward position. And as wiry as that nigga is, they better not do that. You might not have a choice, you may feel like, but that is not going to be sustainable. It's just not going to be. They're definitely going to suffer for a little bit. But if he proves to be worth the deal, then again, you'll see a drastic shift in their efficiency, or at least enough for them to be a competent team to compete. Kevon Looney is going to miss 2 to 3 weeks with a knee injury. That's definitely unfortunate. So he's probably going to miss a few of the first games here. I don't really know at this point. Like, they signed him to a 2-year deal, so he's probably going to be a bench guy for them. I just don't know how many minutes he truly logged with this Pelican squad to start out. But again, that will be interesting once the time comes. The Bucks would waive Chris Livingston. They previously signed him to a deal, and again, just like that, gone. The Clippers would waive Patrick Baldwin Jr. as well. Poor Patrick Baldwin Jr., man, jeez. Even more of a just tough week per se for the Kings, because Domantas Sabonis would suffer a hamstring injury around the time preseason was still going on, and he will be reevaluated next week, so he is also going to miss the first few games of the season. And damn, it's like now you are in such a fucking wild situation if you're the Kings, man, because you don't have enough defense. And you're thinking that, hey, if that's the case, okay, we have to do everything in our power to outscore our opponents. And we can definitely make that happen with Domantas Sabonis being at the center position and just essentially being a point guard at that position, creating those mismatches and consistently being the ball handler. They are lucky that they did manage to get DeRozan and Zach LaVine, but even then, with them handling the ball, is your offense even going to remotely work the same? Probably not. You're definitely going to struggle with a lot more playmaking in those situations, even though both of them will have the occasional game where they'll get 10 or more assists. But that is by far the best center you have on your team as well. And Sabonis is literally their engine. You take away that, and now your offense, even with those older guys trying their hardest to hold it down, that's going to become an issue as well. Because other players got to eat, and other players are going to have to step up if Sabonis is gone. And it's like, yeah, those guys will still have their spurts, but you cannot constantly bank on that with how old, especially DeMar DeRozan, they are. It is as simple as that. You don't have a good enough defense to be enough of a threat right now to Western Conference teams. And your offense is certainly going to take a hit early. They better hope that he's all good by next week. Because they just don't have enough of a roster outside of that core three to afford Sabonis being out for an extended period of time. They just don't. Johnny Juzang, former Jazz player, would sign a 2-way contract with the Timberwolves. I don't know how much time he'll find there as well, especially with the rise of Terrence Shannon Jr. Definitely going to be interesting to see what he does as well, and how they incorporate him into this lineup even further. But I guess in spot minutes and garbage time, you'll probably see him, I guess. I don't know. Rockets would start the craze of bigger extensions here past this Keegan Murray point. They would sign Kevin Durant to a 2-year, $90 million contract extension. I don't even know how they made it happen. Like, this was something that they were clearly, once they did initially sign him via the trade, it felt like for one reason or another, they couldn't agree on this. And they were not very willing to give him that second year. This was just going to be a rental. he was going to peace out after the season, and that was going to be that while they continue to focus on stringing along their other young guys. But instead, no. They already see that Kevin Durant could bring a tremendous amount of value to their organization. Again, when you look at the on-court production, everybody's saying that, again, he can serve as that kind of closer when it comes to clutch time moments, when it comes to them potentially being playoff contenders. And, again, to have him be as old as he is in the starting lineup, that's not going to be a problem when you have defender after defender after defender flanking him from his right to his left. Amen Thompson is about to go so stupid this season. Like, they've got the formula going, and, luckily for them, they do still have some just short-term contracts that they can work around while giving Kevin Durant this deal. So from that standpoint, this is a good move, but it did immediately affect their ability to extend another one of their younger players, and I can get to that in a second. Moving on to the Thunder, as Cason Wallace would have his $7.24 million team option picked up by the Thunder for next season. And it does make sense from that perspective. I mean, he's, again, turned into a sneaky good player for them off of the bench as a defensive specialist. And, the three-pointers as well, they're not always going to be perfect, but he definitely makes enough to get by. He is a terror on the other side of the ball. Like, I couldn't, for a second, whenever the Thunder were playing a preseason game, not look at a notification involving Cason Wallace and see him log 5 steals on multiple nights in the preseason. Just an absolute threat. And, the fact that the Thunder were able to essentially just steal him like that, it's like, bruh, like, it works perfectly for them. You don't need Cason Wallace to overtake the scoring duties for you. You just don't. That's handled already. But he's just a lunch pail guy. He's going to come in. He's going to do what he has to do on that front. He'll give you a few buckets every now and then. And, bro, he's just going to go about his day. Like, that works perfectly for this Thunder team. When you know that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is your guy, when you know that you have a solid supporting cast with Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams, who is probably going to look to repeat an all-star nod this season, and potentially an all-defensive nod, because he's just that versatile himself. That amount of versatility and that kind of leadership, without necessarily having a superego about things, is going to be vital to the Thunder's pursuit of repeating. And it's a large reason why they were able to break through last year. And again, all we know about the vault of picks that they still have. They're not going anywhere. So this is probably something that people have to get used to. The Blazers would make a pair of moves. First, they would sign Shaedon Sharpe to a 4-year, $90 million rookie contract extension a couple days back. Definitely excited for that. Definitely. I have no words about it. Now, of course, health is one thing for him. He also, again, is going to find a role. Like, they, for a while, started him last season and then decided that, hey, he might work better as a six-man. At what exactly is going to be his defined role moving forward is something that they're going to have to explore. And that's largely, again, outside of just being a scorer. He's definitely got to get more efficient, and he has to become more of a willing passer. There were so many games where he just had the most unorthodox shooting splits out there, and yet still would refuse to just give up the ball. He'd just continue firing. That works in some cases. The Blazers, they're just not. They are not. They are still on the rise. They have a lot of stuff to work out there before they can start having one individual player completely take over for them. And you would think that one player who would have these kinds of crazy fucking scoring nights for them would be a guy like Jeremy Grant, only it feels like they're closer and closer to making a decision on him sooner rather than later, unfortunately. But this Blazers team, for as bad as it's been, again, they show a lot of young promise, and it's not the craziest contract in the world for Shaedon Sharpe when you look at some of the rookie max contract deals out there. But it at least shows that, hey, they're willing to continue giving this thing a chance. He's incredibly young. He's still got time to develop as a player. So they're just going to have to start making sure that those strides are taking place. Sooner rather than later, of course. You can't hold on to that forever in the NBA. But if he's coming along nicely, man, that'll do wonders for them. And in Grant's case, when you look at this next move, yeah, his time might truly be up because they would also sign a couple days ago Toumani Camara to a 4-year, $82 million contract extension as well. And it is a well-deserved deal. Like, how crazy is that? From me looking at the initial deal, which sent Drew Holiday over to the Celtics, I think, and then an ensuing trade that essentially rerouted Toumani Camara from the Bucks over to the Celtics. Robert Williams III also was involved in that deal, and he's currently still injured, by the way, per something I saw earlier. But yeah, for me, literally not knowing who the hell Toumani Camara was, to now having him be legitimately one of the best young defensive wings in the NBA right now. Like, there was a stat line essentially saying that he was like one of the few players who was like 6'8" or shorter with like a certain amount of steals and three-pointers in a single season. Ace as a defensive specialist and three-point shooter. And it feels like it's only going to get better. To have that kind of contribution from him now, and for him to be way younger than Jeremy Grant is, while demanding the ball way less than he does. That is something that the Blazers can work with tremendously. Especially if other young guys develop in the ways that they intend for them to do so. Like, by that logic, you could essentially compare Toumani Camara and kind of put him in the same boat as Herbert Jones. I would have absolutely no problem with that. Although you could make the case that he's probably come in as a more heralded three-point shooter than Herbert Jones is right now. But there's not too much of a difference there, in my estimation. Like, again, you have that kind of impact on the game without even commanding as much offensive attention. If the Blazers can find it, especially with not just Scoot Henderson taking another step forward, but also Danny fucking Avdija potentially becoming a superstar caliber player, especially with the way that he finished last season. If that kind of thing can go down with his defensive ability as well, man, it makes so much difference for this Blazers team. And for them looking to kind of at least get back into relevancy. At least one, until Damian Lillard does come back from injury next season. Because, I mean, having him there, I don't know in what role they'll have him, but they'll certainly be looked at because Damian Lillard, obviously, the story writes itself. But even after that, you're trying to build for the future here as well, and that was the initial reason why you got rid of Damian Lillard in the first place. So, can you take that massive stride forward in the same way that the Pistons did last season? It is what the Blazers have to find out this year. But in extending Sharpe and extending Camara, man, they are very much on pace to do just that. The Hawks would also get themselves a nice defensive specialist. And honestly, with them specifically, he was doing some massive all-around stuff. And it also just gives them yet another kind of versatile weapon to work with, as the Hawks would sign Dyson Daniels to a 4-year, $100 million contract extension per Shams Charania. Why do I talk about their versatility? This man, Jalen Johnson, was literally averaging almost 20, 10, and 5 before he got hurt last season. Then he steps out, and you have Dyson Daniels literally being the perfect complement to Trae Young's offensive ability for most of that season. Being legitimately a defensive menace at the guard position. With his long frame, his basketball IQ, and his ability to just consistently pickpocket people and get his hands in the fucking passing lane time and time again. How many 5-steal games did you see this man have last season? It would not stop. And it's probably not going to. The fact that he's doing this at his ripe young age is also pretty fucking scary as well. So, what a long way for him as well. Yeah, he was only recently drafted by the Pelicans. But now this Hawks team, yes, Trae Young is going to be the focal point, and they've had a massive offseason. But, if you're not careful, man, they might be able to develop Dyson Daniels into something truly, truly fucking dangerous. The Nuggets would also sign Christian Braun to a 5-year, $125 million contract extension. Now, when it comes to his abilities as an offensive player, man, he provides tremendous defense. I don't think we can question that, but, when Jokic is not on the court, obviously, they're scrambling. And they've been looking for a player other than Jamal Murray to take the mantle there in those situations. There were moments in the postseason where Christian Braun proved to be a catch-and-shoot threat. But still, there are a lot of different things that he would have to put together in this time. I think, though, that he's still, solid enough as a player to command that respect. Again, for him being a quality player, $25 million a year is not bad at all. Hey, I mean, he's already feeling a bit of the progression as well. The man, media day, donned a full fucking beard. Weirdly enough. I don't know what the hell's been going on over the past couple months for him to get that much fucking facial hair. But, hey, that's how I know. He just gonna be dogging this season, man. As a potential, honestly, in this offense with Aaron Gordon already being there, on some nights he could be the third option. It wouldn't be a requirement. But, again, the Nuggets have now given themselves a chance to be far more portable than they have been in the Jokic era. Far more portable. Especially helped by bringing in Cameron Johnson. So it should be something to watch for sure. But going back to the Rockets, yes, Kevin Durant at the small forward position is going to be the unquestioned starter. That's going to leave some younger players in vulnerable positions when it comes to being included in rotation. They're still going to have to get their minutes, and they're still going to have to get their overall respect in terms of job security. And one such player in this situation would be Tari Eason. As per this report from Shams Charania, he would not get a rookie contract extension. I don't know if there's a one-to-one correlation here, but you could imagine that this kind of money being given to Kevin Durant and then having a few days later, Eason and the Rockets come to a stalemate about his potential extension. It wouldn't be too difficult to put 1 and 2 together. I don't think they're intentionally trying to lowball Tari Eason here, but it's clear that in one situation or another, one side thinks that they are far more valued than the other side wants to potentially admit or wants to invest in said commodity. It's definitely unfortunate. Eason, with that, becomes a restricted free agent next season. And it'll put the Rockets in an interesting spot. Like, because in all honesty, like, I think that could be a big loss for them. It could. When it comes to having that kind of depth of defensive players to deploy at a moment's notice and just hawk down teams that way. Would help tremendously to have Eason on there. But again, if he feels like he's worth a little more, then he would probably want to go somewhere else. Still to this point, they have a lot of just weird fits on this team. Like, take this for example. They still have Jae'Sean Tate on their team right now. Why? I couldn't tell you. Hopefully they can figure it out in time. You would hate to see Tari Eason go out that way. The Pacers would sign Aaron Nesmith to a 2-year, $40.4 million contract extension for the last development in this cycle prior to the start of the season, literally less than a half hour. And, yeah, I totally understand Aaron Nesmith getting that money. Like, no, he's not a player that is going to blow you away with the numbers on a night-to-night basis. But, when it came down the stretch of the regular season, when it came to what this man did in the fucking playoffs, rising up time and time again for that team, I'm not going to lie to you. If the Pacers would have fucked around and won the NBA championship in June, Aaron Nesmith would be getting way more than $20.2 million. Even if the Pacers famously do not really dip into the luxury tax like that. Because he put up some elite production for them when it mattered the most. And that's the identity of the entire Pacers roster. He did not just put his defense on display, although, again, like I said earlier, even though the fouls that he had in the playoffs led the NBA during that postseason, pretty wild stat. But the way he got physical specifically with Brunson definitely changed that series around. The way in which before we even get to Tyrese Halliburton hitting that game-winning shot in Game 2, you saw what that man did. Came all the way from the fucking three-point line to dunk that shit over Donovan Mitchell and get a foul. The little things that he did over this time paid off dividends in the short term and in the long term of these respective series. And again, that's not always going to show up on the stats sheet. Even if he did go off by himself before Tyrese Halliburton even gets the game-tying shot that led to a Pacers overtime win in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. You saw that man go for 15 straight points on 5 straight threes by himself to close down that fourth quarter. It's just the randomness of that team. Anyone can get hot at any moment. And, even though they didn't get their intended result, along with having Halliburton out for all this time, it's definitely tough. But, man, like I said, and yet they still let Miles Turner, or at least Miles Turner still decided to leave. I don't know, man. But you had to do as best as you could to keep this roster together. And, this is yet another step in them doing that. So it deserves all the respect. And, that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace, and man, this is going to be a hell of a basketball season.